Let's talk, move a little toward the economic climate, which, as you well know, we haven't seen certainly in a number of years. Prior to the recession or the economic downslide, a lot of the accounting firms were wrestling with recruiting, with retention. Now, certainly, the focus has shifted a little bit away from that. Calming panicked clients, and if you have a financial planning arm, telling them how to invest their money. What are some of the things that Grant Thornton has done, to cope with the recession?
Well, certainly we're impacted by the downturn in the economy, like every other accounting firm, like every other business in America, and it's impacted our revenue, it's impacted our profitability. So we've cut costs like everyone else. We're cutting back on travel costs, we're cutting back on conferences, any place that we can cut the obvious costs, we're doing. We're also focusing on those areas of our business that can generate opportunities. We were very fortunate that a few years ago we started a restructuring and turnaround and reorganization, bankruptcy practice. And of course, in this economy, that's booming. It's up 40% over the prior year. We've had for a long time a practice of doing consulting and advisory work for the federal government and for state and local governments. And with the increase in governmental activity, that practice is going very strong. It's up 15% over the prior year. Now, on the other side, of course, the internal control work, the internal audit, the general audit, and general tax are down a little because of the downturn in the economy, some more than others. And we've seen the impact of that, and we've been very careful about cutting costs. We've reduced our hirings. We're still hiring people, but we've reduced it. We've reduced some of our staff in certain service lines to adjust for the downturn in the business, as I think everyone has. And frankly, we've come out of that very healthy because of some of the practices that we're in, because of some of our activities. We're very solid balance sheet, very solid business. We've also been successful continuing to win new clients and increasing market share. And so even though there's a downturn in the economy, we continue to win a lot of new clients, and that helps offset some of the pressures on fees. And we've certainly seen pressures on fees, both on new business and frankly, even for some of our existing clients that are struggling because of the downturn impacting them. They're looking for ways to cut back their costs. So we've seen the impact, the pressures to reduce revenue, but we've been able to offset that and keep our revenue relatively flat with the prior year. And that's been quite a success. Now, on a global front, the picture is a little bit different. But this is a global recession, and all the economies throughout the world are impacted. Stephen can talk more about China, but certainly in Europe, there's been an impact, but it varies even within Europe. The UK, because of the financial services of the economy there, the UK as a country has been impacted more so than the United States in general, and certainly the accounting firms, Grant Thornton, all the firms have been impacted there. On the other hand, places like Germany, Sweden have not been impacted as much. France, for example, in our audit business, most of them are on 3-year fixed contracts, so the audit business continues to be very strong there. But even in continental Europe, you're seeing less M&A activity, obviously, and less IPOs, and that impacts accounting firms. So we're seeing a downturn as a result of that. But we've been fortunate enough to maintain our solid base and as well as to grow with new clients, and that's been able to offset some of the impact as it impacts Grant Thornton.
Okay. Stephen, the next question for you is two-part. During Ed's tenure, he grew the revenues of Grant Thornton from $400 million to over $1 billion. I mean, those are some big shoes to fill.
Tough act to follow,
and
yes.
especially in this climate. I was wondering, how you would continue along that line. I mean, it would be unfair to expect that type of growth, certainly in this economy. So I'll start with that, and then perhaps you can talk a little bit about the situation, the tax situation over there in China. What Ed was referring to.
The economy.
The economy.
Well, as it relates to our opportunity to grow, I am very optimistic about our position in the marketplace, and I think actually, although this particular economic crisis is certainly a tough environment to operate, it's provided us with an opportunity, as Ed said, to take some actions to really position ourselves for future growth. And we have areas of our practice that are growing today. When you look at the landscape of the marketplace for accounting, tax, advisory services in the United States, although we've grown significantly, as you pointed out, Bill, our market share is still relatively small. And we look at the remaining part of the market and believe that we can achieve more market share by focusing in particular on what we believe is a very distinctive form of client service, that will allow us to penetrate and build market share in those areas. Perhaps not at the 20–30% growth rate we've seen in the past, but certainly at a very important and acceptable level of growth. So we're moving. I think we're in the process of moving from growing the top line from an expansion of services to growing the top line through an expansion of market share and taking the actions necessary to achieve that. As it relates to China, the economy has bounced back very quickly there. There was a significant fiscal package, stimulus package that the government introduced. The government has opened up the lending from banks in China, so there's a lot of free capital, not free capital, but freely available capital, I should say, which has stimulated investment and growth. And there's a lot of optimism that's come back into the Chinese economy. The stock market has been booming. But I think there's also some concern and some skepticism that perhaps the fiscal policy has been a little bit too loose, and that might fuel inflation, and in fact this could result in some negative impact perhaps over the next 2 or 3 years. So good short-term news, but concern that it might come back to haunt them a little bit here over the next 2 or 3 years.
Bill, if I can just add, in the United States, I think when we meet with our clients, and Steve and I have been meeting with clients, obviously for a long time, but in the last few months, or within the last month, I would say, we're seeing more optimism. We're seeing people, glimmers of hope, people talking about the possibility of IPOs, talking about acquisitions. Now, they're not necessarily acting yet. We don't really have the IPOs in place. We don't have a lot of M&A activity actually happening, but there's a lot of talk about it, and so that's provides some level of optimism. Now, you got to be very cautious because it's just talk at this point for the most part, and that doesn't bring any revenue in for them or for us. But hopefully there'll be some activity down the road, and at least you're seeing smiling faces more than you're seeing really upset faces, which you saw 6 months ago or even 3 or 4 months ago.
Right.